The focus of this project is the entire island of Iceland, from the peninsula fjords of the west to the jagged fjords of the east. Iceland is a true marvel. Hi, my name is Sierra Kebodeaux,
My name is Lee Stumbaugh.
And my name is Jeremy Medrano.
and this is Climate Change of Iceland.
As shown in these images, this island, on the northern edge of the Faroe Cell, influenced by the polar easterlies, Gulf Stream, and the Atlantic Ocean, is a climate center with highly varied weather and a climate clock. In fact, most people would be amazed to learn that almost every aspect of Iceland acts as a climactic time machine, allowing scientists to travel to the past, present, and future. This project will focus on marine sediment cores, pollen, and marine flora, some of the many overlooked time machines that, through unique manners, reveal the past, present, and future of climate change in Iceland.
Marine sediment cores provide scientists with important information from the deep ocean about the history of changing climate. According to Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, these cores can be extracted using a variety of different coring instruments, as can be seen in Figure 3, and offer details such as the geologic makeup, water temperature, and biologic presence in a certain region. Scientists have collected a variety of marine sediment cores in Iceland, providing specific data about the flow of the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation and past rates of deglaciation. A study conducted by Anderson in northwest Iceland offers conclusions about past climates and events in the region. These have been made possible through a variety of testing that begins with determining the composition of grains and particles extracted in the core. By determining what the grain are composed of and their size, scientists can better ascertain the origins and histories of the cores. The samples are additionally carbon dated and analyzed for biologic evidence, changes in tephra, or ash, composition, grain size, which are prevalent in data collected in Iceland because high rates of volcanic activity have offered great insight into the changing climate. One example of how marine sediment core samples collected in Iceland have provided information about the past climate is evidence of the extent of glaciation in the region during the last glacial maximum. In a study conducted by Andrews, 4 cores were taken from an area in northern Iceland. These cores contained foraminifera, or single celled organisms, which were analyzed. By assessing the presence or absence of certain species, scientists were able to determine that rapid deglaciation had likely occurred in the north. As a final example, Mirzalou's study of marine sediment cores that have been collected in the South Icelandic shelf offer scientific evidence about the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, which can be seen in Figure 4. This is an important circulatory system driving currents. By taking core samples and by utilizing grain size analysis, which is a technique that allows scientists to gain insight into the specific sediment makeup, isotopic analysis, and carbon dating from the Iceland Faroe Ridge, scientists were able to get a better view about the sedimentary cycles in the region and better comprehend the current flow and dynamics within the deep ocean. Marine sediment cores taken from regions in Iceland offer scientists new views about the changing climate in the area, providing evidence of the rates of glaciation, as well as information about the flow of currents. Another important paleoproxy record that shows up in marine sediment cores is pollen.
Palynology, the study of pollen grains and other spores, helps climatologists understand the changes of climate in Iceland by analyzing the paleoproxy records and predicting what will happen with our climate in the future. Pollen comes from all types of plants and becomes preserved in sediments over time found in oceans, lakes, and ponds. By recovering the pollen sediments, scientists can determine what type of plant the pollen was produced by and take that information to find out when that plant was growing and what the temperature was at that time. When these factors are found, the paleoproxy records can then be made. Pollen in Iceland is connected to and supports marine sediment cores and marine flora for a couple of different reasons. Pollen was found in marine sediment cores and marine flora in a lake in Iceland, therefore assisting in understanding climate change over different periods of time on Earth in Iceland. Marine sediment core data is found by drilling into the sea floor and collecting samples of the ocean floor layers called sediment cores. This is helpful to create a broader view in understanding pollen because pollen can often be found in these sediment cores, providing information on what plants grew in that area of time. Scientists have found that when the climate in Iceland is colder, it disrupts pollen production. It was also found that the disruption of pollen production, specifically downy birch in 8800 to 8100 cal year BP, showed decreased success in vegetation of Juniperus communis scrub and downy birch. Downy birch offers food and shelter for biodiversity, stabilizes soil, provides windbreaks, and sequesters carbon. When these plants are not growing, it affects Iceland's climate. Marine flora is also a useful source of information for paleontology because aquatic plants produce pollen, just like plants on land, giving a broader view of climate change from pollen in areas of water.
Moving on to marine flora. Marine flora helps scientists understand climate past and present. These graphs, from a study by Richard Zimmerman, show an increase in seagrass publications as atmospheric CO2 increased from 1920 to 2020. This is because seagrass and other marine flora sensitivity to changing climate is increasingly important in understanding the impact of climate change on ecosystems around the world. The same study, in discussing changing seagrass ecosystems, states that from 1987 to 1992, and again in 2015, reduced O2 solubility and high turbidity occurred in parts of the ocean resulting from elevated temperatures and salinity. One piece of evidence for this is the rapid seagrass die-offs that occurred at the time of the change. This research shows how kelp forests and seagrass climate sensitivity can be used as proxy records in Iceland. Marine flora can also be used to show current climate trends and where they may be headed. Dorte Cross Jensen and her team discuss in their research how Fucus serratus, an invasive seaweed species in Iceland, migrates very slowly, extending its range northward, which they posit may be due to ocean warming facilitating an expansion of its habitat. Their entire study looks at the relationship between the northward expansion of macroalgae and eelgrass and higher temperatures in the Arctic seas. The results show that the majority of Arctic coastal regions display an increase in marine flora and clear expansion northward as the sea warms. However, as shown in figures 10 and 11, some other areas were shown to have very little or no change at all, such as East Iceland and northern Norway. With these in mind, this study gave a medium confidence rating, according to IPCC rating standards, of the association between warming climate and marine flora's northward expansion in Iceland and other Panarctic regions. This means that there is an association, but more research needs to be pursued by climatologists and in various other disciplines. This study is a great example of how marine flora can aid and supplement current and future predictions of climate change in Iceland and around the world.
Looking at climate records in Iceland is a great way to better understand climate patterns and events over time. Scientists utilize marine sediment cores, which offer information on past and current glaciation patterns, to get a picture of the changing landscape. Additionally, pollen data can provide scientists with information about previous plant life and how these organisms affected climate in the region. Finally, data about marine flora, such as kelp and seagrass, inform understanding of oceanic and coastal climate change in Iceland. By utilizing Iceland's abundant resources, researchers have found ample evidence of climate change. With the aid of paleoproxy records like marine sediment cores, pollen, and marine flora, scientists have gained a better understanding of climate change of the past, what is presently occurring, and the future of climate in the region. Contribute to continuing ever evolving research on climate change. Finally, this is our bibliography.